The sun had barely risen over the dusty horizon of northeastern Nigeria, casting a pale orange glow across a small military outpost in Borno State. The calm of dawn felt fragile, as if the air itself carried the tension accumulated over months of conflict. An uneasy silence hung over the dry land, broken only by the soft murmur of the wind among the improvised structures of the garrison. Yet that fragile balance was abruptly shattered. In the distance, a metallic roar began to grow, accompanied by the light thud of hurried footsteps on the sand. The soldiers on guard exchanged cautious glances, aware that in this region, danger was never far. Their senses were sharpened by experience, trained to detect the slightest sign of threat, conscious that any lapse could be fatal. The presence of the military in Borno was no trivial matter. For more than a decade, northeastern Nigeria has been the epicenter of insurgency, with the violence of armed groups such as Boko Haram and its splinter, the Islamic State West Africa Province, ISWAP, has transformed daily life into a constant struggle for survival. The region is strategic, both for its proximity to neighboring countries and its symbolic value in the narrative of extremist groups seeking to challenge the state and project power. Each military outpost, each patrol, represents not only an attempt to contain the threat, but also an effort to restore, even partially, the state's presence in territories where its authority has been questioned for years. That morning, ISWAP launched a swift and coordinated attack. The violence was instantaneous and brutal, a mixture of desperate ferocity and martial discipline forged through years of conflict and indoctrination. The defenders, a heterogeneous group of seasoned soldiers and newly recruited personnel, reacted immediately. Adrenaline surged, hearts pounded, and minds ran almost automatically through every tactical scenario they had drilled tirelessly. Bullets tore through the air, interrupted by the deafening roar of automatic gunfire and occasional explosions that sent clouds of dust and debris into the already stifling heat of the desert landscape. Amid the chaos, the coordination of the soldiers began to make a difference. Communicating in brief, precise bursts of orders, covering each other, and maneuver with accuracy, the defenders managed to hold key positions. Their resolve was strengthened by the knowledge that retreat was not a viable option. Every movement, every decision made in split seconds, became an act of survival and resistance against an enemy that had made violence its primary tool. The historical context of this conflict traces back to years of political, social, and economic complexity. Borno and surrounding states have faced a deadly combination of factors: widespread poverty, social marginalization, lack of state infrastructure, and intercommunity conflicts, elements exploited by insurgent groups to recruit fighters and consolidate influence. ISWAP, emerging as a splinter from Boko Haram, has demonstrated a more structured and disciplined approach, focusing on clearer military and strategic objectives, distinguishing itself from its predecessor through the ability to execute coordinated operations and maintain relatively stable supply lines. The violence of these groups has profound societal impact. Communities live under constant threat. Internal displacement is massive, and the regional economy is severely affected. Schools close, markets empty, and daily life is redefined by immediate security concerns. Residents' testimonies reveal an ambivalent sentiment: continuous fear, yet also a desire for normalcy that drives many to remain in their homes despite the risks. In response to this threat, the Nigerian state has deployed multiple security strategies. Coordinated military operations with international support, intelligence programs, surveillance patrols, and the strengthening of defensive infrastructure are some of the measures employed. Yet limitations persist. The vast territory, the dispersion of insurgent groups, and the complexity of the terrain hinder the state's response. Consequently, the conflict unfolds in an asymmetric warfare scenario, where rapid decision-making, adaptability, and cohesion among security forces are decisive for both survival and operational effectiveness. The clash that day in Borno lasted several hours. Every meter of ground was fiercely contested, and the air was thick with the smell of gunpowder, sweat, and fear. Yet the strategy and discipline of the Nigerian forces began to turn the tide. Sweeping operations, mutual covering fire, and control of key positions allowed them to gradually neutralize the attackers. By midday, official reports confirmed that at least 38 insurgents had been killed and their weapons seized, representing a limited but meaningful achievement in the ongoing struggle to restore stability in the region. Institutional analysis of this event reveals several lessons. First, the importance of preparation and training in the resilience of security forces. Second, the need for precise, real-time intelligence to anticipate insurgent movements. Third, the relevance of coordination with local communities, whose knowledge of the terrain and insurgent behavior can make the difference between success and failure of an operation. These factors determine not only the outcome of specific confrontations, but also influence the perception of security and trust in the state, crucial elements for the social and political reconstruction of conflict-affected areas. As the sun climbed toward its zenith, smoke rose over the outpost walls, witness to recent violence and a reminder of the fragility of peace. Soldiers attended to the wounded, secured recovered weapons, and reinforced positions with the awareness that the threat had not disappeared, only been temporarily contained. Villagers, observing from a safe distance, experienced a mixture of relief and caution. The victory was significant, but insurgency remained a persistent actor in their daily lives. The political and social repercussions of such confrontations are complex. Every successful military operation strengthens the state's legitimacy and sends a message of resistance against extremism. Yet human and material costs generate internal tensions and debates over the effectiveness of the security strategy. Conflict analysts emphasize that without complementary approaches in social development, education, and reintegration of former fighters, violence tends to reproduce itself in cycles that perpetuate instability. The narrative of that day in Borno thus becomes a microcosm of the broader challenge facing Nigeria and the Lake Chad region. The asymmetric warfare unfolding there not only tests the operational capacity of security forces, but also highlights the limitations of institutional structures in confronting non-state actors who operate with mobility, influence networks, and psychological strategies. The resilience of soldiers, tactical coordination, and solidarity amid chaos emerge as factors that, though not definitive, represent a hope of temporarily containing insurgent advances. As afternoon turned to night, a cautious silence returned to the desert. The stars began to shine, distant witnesses to sacrifices and efforts that day after day defined the struggle for security. Soldiers, exhausted but vigilant, reflected on the day. Comrades lost, acts of courage displayed, and a determination to continue facing an enemy that knows no surrender. In every gesture, in every night patrol, there was the awareness that peace was a fragile achievement, requiring constant vigilance, meticulous strategy, and collective commitment. The outcome of that day was measured not only in lives saved or weapons secured. Its significance lies in demonstrating that even against a determined and violent adversary, organization, discipline, and cohesion can temporarily tip the balance. Every successful operation, every position defended, becomes a lesson in the nature of contemporary conflicts, complex, prolonged, and multidimensional, where military power coexists with political, social, and psychological factors that shape the course of the struggle. In the days that followed, operations extended to surveillance patrols, reinforced checkpoints, and horizon monitoring, reminding everyone that security in Borno is an ongoing effort. The insurgency, though weakened, had not been eradicated, and each day represents a challenge that demands courage, planning, and institutional commitment. The region, marked by a history of violence and resilience, remains tense, yet shows signs of recovery and capacity to resist, essential elements for any attempt at social and political reconstruction. Ultimately, the day's events at that military outpost stand as a testament to the daily struggle of those who, in the face of terror and uncertainty, choose to remain steadfast. The combination of strategy, discipline, and solidarity shows that even in the harshest circumstances, it is possible to maintain hope and protect what matters most: life and the possibility of peace. The story of Borno is not only the chronicle of a confrontation, but also a reflection on the challenges of security in prolonged violence contexts, on the adaptability of state and non-state actors, and on the importance of remaining vigilant against persistent threats. Every sunrise in this region, every patrol, every tactical decision, is a piece of a larger mosaic. The building of a future where violence is not the only language, and where the resilience of communities and security forces can gradually allow stability to emerge. In this context, Borno's story reminds us that the fight against extremism is prolonged, achievements are fragile, and beyond headlines, a constant effort exists to maintain peace and protect the lives of those living in lands scarred by conflict. The sun sets behind the desert horizon, revealing a starry sky silently observing the sacrifices and resistance of those on guard. The military outpost, though battered by the clash, stands firm, a beacon of discipline and courage, a reminder that even in the most difficult circumstances, human determination can keep hope alive. The story of that day, carefully documented, serves as a lesson for analysts, security officials, and international observers. Peace is fragile, threats are constant, and perseverance and unity can make the difference, even in the harshest scenarios. In the quiet of the night, as patrols continue and soldiers watch the horizon, the narrative of Borno closes for day, but remains open for the future. Every action, every decision, and every effort is part of a larger story about security, resilience, and the complexity of confronting modern insurgencies. It is a reminder that vigilance, strategy, and solidarity are not optional but imperative in building a state capable of protecting its citizens against violence that threatens to fragment its territory and society. The story continues, and those who listen, observe, and analyze must understand that behind every headline, behind every military report, there's a deeply human reality, where courage and discipline intertwine with the hope that one day peace may cease to be a dream and become a tangible possibility. And so, as night claims the desert and the stars remain silent witnesses, the Borno military outpost stands firm, ready to face the challenges of a new day, aware that the struggle for security and stability is unending, yet confident that perseverance and unity can make a difference, even in the most adverse scenarios. The story does not end here. It continues in every patrol, every decision, and every act of those who have chosen to stand firm in the face of conflict, reminding us that building peace is a constant process, forged in vigilance, strategy, and the solidarity of those who resist.